And Dustin, the USPAP definition of misleading is, quote, intentionally or unintentionally misrepresenting, misstating, or concealing relevant facts or conclusions.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
And welcome to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out once again in the podcast chair. Have a great episode coming up for you. My good friend Tim Andersen is on here in just a few minutes. Want to pause here? Remind you that we are sponsored by 3 companies. One of them being OREP. Speaking of Tim Andersen, he has done some educational tools and some courses there for OREP, and some of them are free for OREP members. Check them out. Go to orep.org. That's OREP.org. We're sponsored by Alamode. Alamode is the software that I continue to use because it continues to give me the best value out there. You can find them on the internet at www.alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE if you want to pick up the phone and call them. Finally, we're sponsored by DataMaster. DataMaster saving appraisers 30 to 60 minutes per report. 30 to 60 minutes per report. An average of 45 minutes every single report you do, folks. One button. It downloads all kinds of information into your forms, makes it easier for you to focus on the analysis side of things. DataMasterUSA.com is where it's at, DataMasterUSA.com. Well, folks, periodically, I have my good friend Tim Andersen on the program, and Tim helps us with all kinds of questions regarding USPAP and what's going on with the GSEs and what appraisers can do to protect themselves. And he is back on the program again today. Thank you, Tim, for taking time.
Dustin, and a gracious good day to you and your family.
I do appreciate it, my friend. Spent a lot of time with my family the last little while, and so far so good.
Whether you wanted to or not. Yeah.
You know, it's fun. My wife caught me in the hallway the other day, and she had this look of frustration on her face, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she goes, "I'm a better mom of 2 than I am of 4." And I, of course, as a dutiful husband, said, "No, you're a great mom of any that you've had." But I know what she means. We had 4, we lost 2, we got them back, and we're in tight quarters together lately, so it's been fun. How's your family faring?
Oh, we're all great. We're sitting here at home, and we've not had any problems whatsoever. A little bored, a little bit of cabin fever, but Dustin, thank you. We're just fine.
I hear you, my friend. Well, thank you for taking time, as always. I want to dive right into this, my friend. Typically, we have questions that come from viewers and listeners, but today I wanted to focus on a couple of other things, mainly because they're kind of important. They're kind of current to our situation. Not that I would discourage anybody. In fact, I quite encourage those comments from coming in, the questions that you might have with regarding the USPAP or state board or different things that you do. Of course, Tim is a USPAP instructor. He is a consultant, a coach, a mentor for appraisers who might want to tighten up the way that they do things and protect themselves against investigation down the road. But also, if you find yourself in front of a state board, Tim can help you with that. Tim, that kind of leads me to my first question. You and I have spoken a little bit off the air, and you said that your work has kind of ramped up a little bit the last while. Why is that?
Dustin, what happened was the Appraisal Foundation, at the urging of the states, came up with a definition of misleading. And basically, the Appraisal Foundation said in so many words, okay, here's the definition. Now, enforce it if you so choose. So state appraisal boards are doing just that, basically. I know in at least one state, appraisers are undergoing audits specifically to see if there is something in the report that is misleading now that there is a specific definition. While states have always brought charges of writing a misleading appraisal report against appraisers, they have not always stuck due to the lack of a standardized, widely accepted definition. That problem is now over. There is a standardized and widely accepted definition. And Dustin, the USPAP definition of misleading is, quote, intentionally or unintentionally misrepresenting, misstating, or concealing relevant facts or conclusions.
Dang, that's broad, man.
Well, Dustin, yeah, it is. And again, there is that issue of the appraiser basically can't say, "Oh my goodness, I made a mistake. I didn't intend to mislead anybody. That's just a mistake. That's a legacy from the appraisal report that I cloned to write this one. I meant no harm." Well, that's probably true, frankly. But under this definition, that defense, if it can be called a defense, won't hold any water, because the definition says we don't care if it was intentional or unintentional. You misrepresented, misstated, or concealed something. Therefore, you're guilty of misleading. Now, remember, being misleading, writing a misleading appraisal report is considered pretty much a violation of ethics, because it's a choice the appraiser makes. That decision may not be a conscious decision, but yet if there is anything misleading there, for example, a legacy from a cloned report, there is the definite possibility the state will interpret that unintentional error against the appraiser. The question has come up, well, what about simple typos? That's a good question. By this definition, typos are going to come under misleading, and that's going to be up to the individual states to determine how they want to handle that issue. Probably, if the typo is, instead of 1234 Elm Street, somebody types 1234 LEM Street, it's not going to make any difference. But for example, if somebody means to type there were 5 comparable sales in the neighborhood last year, but the appraiser has a distraction and types there were 50 comparable sales in the neighborhood last year, the state is probably going to interpret that against the appraiser as misleading.
Wow, that's kind of a big deal. So do you find that with this new definition that more and more states are taking quote unquote advantage of the opportunity to move against appraisers?
Okay, I'm going to dispute the word advantage. I don't think the states are trying to take advantage of the appraisers.
I'll give you that. That's good.
Okay.
Sometimes it feels that way when you're an appraiser, right?
Well, yeah, it does. I don't think the states are trying to take advantage of the appraiser. But in the same vein, I don't think the states are going to ignore the issue, because when the Appraisal Foundation audits the individual states, they do so with a rather cold light and a rather sharp hand. So it is not in the state board's best interests to ignore the rules from the Appraisal Foundation. It's in their best interest to follow them. And usually that does not bode well for the appraiser. However, on a happy note, what happens nationwide is that about 50% of complaints never get to a charge. Most states have what's called a probable cause process or probable cause panel or something like that, to which the state's investigators' notes go. And then those members are going to take a look at it and say, no, that was a dumb charge to begin with, and there's nothing here. Or excuse me, that was a dumb complaint to begin with, and there's nothing here.
Yeah.
So we're going to dismiss the complaint. But on the other hand, there are 50% that don't have that happen to them.
Well, I just want to make it clear on my comment earlier about state boards taking advantage of appraisers. I don't mean that on the boards that I serve under. Of course, they're top of the line. They're decent people.
That's right. You live in the state of utopia. That's right.
Right. Right. I just don't want to tick anybody off. I completely support my state board. So I want to maybe roll this into some current events here quickly, Tim, and then we'll take a break and come back and talk about another issue. But we talked about this last time you and I met, and I think it's still pertinent, especially in terms of misleading. Right now, as of this recording, we're in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of changes going on right now. In fact, I talked to my office manager here a couple of days ago, and she's exhausted trying to keep up with so many different things and changes. And I've got this cheat sheet out there on, can we, when it's Fannie Mae, can we do this and this form for VA and 2055 for this GSE, but not 2055 for that GSE. It's just so hard to keep up with the rules and the regulations. And I fear, Tim, that maybe because of all of these changes and because they are all new and we're trying, it's not like we're trying to be misleading, but there's probably mistakes being made.
Oh, of course there are mistakes being made. And it's simply because, Fannie Mae's rules are not that terribly difficult to follow, and VA's rules are not that terribly difficult to follow, and Bank X's rules are not that terribly difficult to follow. What is difficult to follow is there is no standardization among the rules. Yeah. And then, of course, in, for example, Michigan, basically, if you go outside for anything, prepare to be shot.
Right.
Whereas in, I think it was either Iowa or Nebraska, there are no orders whatsoever relative to sheltering in place. So not only does it vary from state to state, and lender to lender, it also appears to vary, but from city to city. Here in Florida, the beaches were closed, and which was interesting because there were people on the beach, because there are people who own private access to the beach, and therefore they could walk down to their private access. Now, in Florida, once you get to the mean high water line, it's public land. So you can go down the mean high water line, turn north or turn south, and walk all over the place. So the beaches were closed, basically, to those unfortunate enough not to own beachfront property. And
are you saying the laws favor the rich?
I don't know. I'm not rich. I can't answer the question.
Fair enough.
So, in other words, we've got a whole lot of rules to follow, but yet if we follow them in location A, we're going to get in trouble. If we follow lender B's rules in state C, we're going to get in trouble. So, unfortunately, yes, 6 months, 2 years, 4 years down the line, we're going to see some appraisers having to defend themselves against both suits and charges for what has happened during the coronavirus.
Yeah. Okay. My question before we go to the break, Tim, you've been in this game a long time. I use the word game loosely, of course. What advice would you have for appraisers right now during this challenge where there is so much change going on? There is so many T's that need crossed and I's that need dotted.
Dustin, this is going to be a matter of due diligence. If you look at Standard Rule 1-1, and I think it's C, to the comment, it specifically requires appraisers to exercise due diligence. And if that means you got to make another 5 phone calls to chase down the zoning and its ramifications, then please make those extra 5 phone calls. If it means that you have to go through the house by mini drone 4 times before you get a complete picture of the interior of the house, such that you feel comfortable calling it C3, C4, C2, whatever it is you want to call it, then please do so. And then if the homeowner or the occupant just won't let you go through the house, then you have to respect that choice, because basically not only is that protecting the homeowner or the occupant, it is also, to a great extent, protecting you and, to some extent, protecting your family. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult. And, yeah, there are going to be some problems down the road. And unfortunately, Dustin, there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. So, therefore, you're going to have to get with your E&O people and see what they say about upping your coverage or lowering your deductible or whatever. But yeah, down the road, there are going to be some ramifications. Yes.
You heard it here first. Tim Andersen says not just 1 pass through the house with a drone, but 4. That's the key.
Sure. And of course, now I'm sure Dustin will be happy to lend you his mini drone to do all that.
One of 500. You take your choice.
Yeah.
All right. I want to pause here and remind you of a great company. Speaking of E&O, a great company that I switched to about 4 years ago and been very, very pleased, not just with the coverage, not just of their support, but their customer service, for example, and the ability to renew their price and being able to cut my prices in E&O and their benefits. We alluded to that at the first of the program. The fact that they will constantly be putting out great information in regards of continuing education, just education in general. The company, of course, is OREP. Folks, if you are with any other E&O company, please check out OREP. You can find them at orep.org. That's OREP.org. And speaking of technology, 2 great sponsors here, both focused on technology, both focused on making your life easier. One of them, of course, is DataMaster saving you. They say 30 to 60 minutes per report. Folks, I've timed this. I'm kind of a geek that way. I do time how much time it takes to do this ridiculous, this very important, very non-misleading data entry that we do. And it takes a long time, folks, and it takes a long time to get it right? We talked about typos today. We talked about crossing your T's and dotting your I's. DataMaster will help you to do that better, because you're not going to have that fat finger problem. You're not going to have the problem where you mistype the address, because if it's right in MLS, it's going to be right in your report. That's what technology can help you with. They're not perfect, because the data may not be perfect, and you're always in charge of making sure that you check that data. But if you want to save time and if you want to be more efficient in the process of appraisal, check them out. Go to DataMasterUSA.com. Again, it's DataMasterUSA.com. Speaking of efficiencies, folks, forever in a year, I've been using a la mode. A la mode software is allowing me to be able to do more. Total Mobile. I was just on a call this morning with a bunch of appraisers, and they were talking about the great systems out there. And somebody mentioned Total Mobile and the opportunity to be able to gather on site the information that you need and beam that, if it were, back to your office. That's what Total Mobile will allow you to do. Check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. And we are are back. Mr. Tim Andersen is on the program again. Tim, welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Dustin. And my advice is to eat more chocolate.
I've been off of sugar for, 3-4 months now.
I know. And I mean, you don't look a day over 107.
I'm still as fat as ever, and now I'm just more grumpy. Maybe I should go back. I appreciate you coming on. Let's talk a little bit about, first of all, how people can get a hold of you. You provide an awesome business and service out there for appraisers who are in need of advice, both to look at their reports and give them some tips on how they can do better, and also those of you mentioned earlier that might find themselves in trouble. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and how people can get a hold of you, Tim.
Dustin, because I don't appraise anymore, I've been out of the retail end of the business since 2014. I just get a great deal of pleasure out of helping my fellow appraisers. And it also lets me leverage my training and experience as a USPAP inspector. So when someone needs to get in touch with me, it's very straightforward. My website is theappraisersadvocate.com. No apostrophe S, just theappraisersadvocate.com. And then my email address is tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. And quite frankly, call me 561-635-5265.
And of course, I've utilized your services, well worth the money, well worth the investment. There's a lot of free information you give out there as well. I know you do a blog. You also do a podcast. How do people find your podcast?
It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Stitcher. It's on 3 or 4 places. And then it's also on my website, theappraisersadvocate.com/podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. All right, Tim, I want to talk a little bit about, just briefly, there's not a whole lot of data here yet, but we, of course, became aware here just recently that the GSE, specifically Fannie Mae, is revamping the forms that we have all been used to. And I think that process is still ongoing. Who knows when those will actually be revealed. But we did get a sneak peek at the potential, and I want to stress that word, potential grid that may be coming out for residential. What are your thoughts, my friend?
Well, the old form, as everybody knew, needed to be revamped. It needed drastically to be revamped. The new form has, to a great extent, accomplished that. As you and I have mentioned before, Dustin, we could never figure out why the bathroom wainscot was something that the appraiser had to inspect and photograph.
Oh, wait a second. Well, you and I have talked about that before, and I've made it very clear. That, to me, is my favorite field.
The best part of the house is the bathroom wainscot. Yep, that's been so
I don't know how to
true
pronounce that. Some people say wainscot. Some people say wainscot. What the hell is it?
Well, Wayne's coat is a jacket worn by Wayne. So I've always pronounced it wainscot. But
right. Well, there you go.
That's okay. Just, I'm probably wrong. Just ask my wife. That is not in the new form, fortunately. But what is in the new form is a much more of an orientation toward what is going on in the neighborhood, what is going on in the market area, with somewhat less emphasis on the physical aspects of the subject house itself. This is not to say that the physical aspects are not important. It is, however, to say that of just as much importance is what's happening in the neighborhood from the standpoint of economic factors, legal factors, social factors, etc., because all of those go into highest and best use, which is basically the core of any real property appraisal. Now, as you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, the form that is available for review on the internet is not the final form. Everybody understands that.
Right.
So as a result, appraisers should get on the internet, go take a look at it, and then once they've been through it, write down their questions and send those questions in to the Appraisal Foundation. Snotty comments are not necessary. Neither are snotty questions, for that matter. But the legitimate questions of, okay, why did you do this and why didn't you do that? And this appears to be inconsistent. Is it? That's the kind of thing that Fannie Mae is looking for. And what happens with Fannie Mae, what happens to this form, will eventually happen to the other GSEs as well. In fact, they might even use Fannie Mae's form. I doubt it, but they might. So Fannie Mae is trying to revamp the form without question because it needed to be. The issue has been brought up that the revamping is not beneficial to appraising. And that's true. It's not. But then that form has never been for the benefit of the appraiser.
Right,
it's for the benefit of the underwriter. It's for the benefit of the lender. It's for the benefit of those who eventually purchase Fannie Mae's paper down the road. It's never been to the appraiser's advantage, and it's never been designed for the benefit of the appraiser.
There's a couple things that jump out at me when I'm looking at this grid, and it's a big grid. That's probably the thing that pops out first. But My understanding, and it's hard to see this in the PDF that I've seen, but my understanding is that this is kind of a collapsible form. There's been some idea that the new form would not be a paper form, as it were, that it would be more digital online. And my understanding is, though it's just rumor at this point, that you can hide or things won't really appear unless they're something that you need to deal with. In other words, there's a lot of fields here, but you don't necessarily in the final product see them all. It's only those that are pertinent. Is that your understanding as well, Tim?
Right. In other words, if you have 4 comparables, then there will be 4 comparables. You will not have 3 comparables on one page, 1 comparable on a second page, and 2 blank columns. It will all be on one page, which is going to make side-by-side comparison a whole lot easier.
The other thing that was mentioned, and I don't know how official this is, but this got posted, of course, on the internet. There was a lot of, shall we say, snotty comments about the length. Somebody indicated that, you think this is bad? The original form was 3 times this size. Again, I don't know. I don't know if that's just rumor. I don't know if somebody had some inside knowledge. But you said that there's a lot more focus on neighborhood, location. Do you think that's a good thing, Tim?
Yeah, because Fannie Mae basically already knows what the property is worth within 10 minutes of somebody applying for the loan. They're just waiting for the appraisal. So Fannie Mae is a lot more concerned about the risk of making the loan. Because let's face it, once the loan is made, the appraisal basically loses any force that it ever had. However, Fannie Mae or a pool of investors is going to have that loan until the loan is paid off, be that in 3 years or 5 years or 30 years. Therefore, the risk of making that loan, the risk of not getting paid back, the risk of having an insurance rate locked in is very high. And the investors, the underwriters, to a great extent, want to minimize that risk. Therefore, they want to know about the risks in the neighborhood. They don't need to know about the bathroom wainscot.
They say you can't complain about the politicians that serve you if you don't take an opportunity to vote. Tim, this is not in final form. This is now the time for appraisers to get involved. And keep in mind, as Tim pointed out, don't be snarky, don't be snotty. Understand that this is not written for the appraiser. On the other hand, I do think they're open to hearing from appraisers and getting your opinion. Get involved. Get in there, make your comments known, do it in a professional manner, and hopefully we can have some influence on what happens down the road. Tim Andersen, the Appraisers Advocate. Thank you, my friend, for joining us. As always, can't wait to talk to you again.
Dustin, thank you so much. My best to your family, to all the listeners, and all the appraisers out there. Thank you.
I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. And just want to remind everybody right now, of course, we're very, very active, very involved on what's the changes that are going on, the pandemic, the changes in forms and scope of work and certifications and everything else. It's hard to keep up on all of that, folks. But we're trying our best at the All-Star team, and we are offering it for free for any appraiser right now that wants to be involved and get some help from their fellow appraisers. It's a positive, uplifting group, both on Facebook and on the internet in general. Of course, we meet monthly. We met this morning, actually, as of this recording. We met this morning to be able to talk and get your questions and answer, and that's what it's all about, for free. Right now, you can go to my website, theappraisercoach.com, and click on memberships, and as you sign up for the All-Star team, just type in COVID-19 and get it for free for 30 months and join the team. Thank you, Tim, once again for joining us, and we will catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.
Appraisal boards. Let's try that again. Editor, we want to get rid of that. Okay, dokie.
Right now, you can go to the All-Star team on my Facebook page, editor. Right now, you can go to my, holy hell. It's been a day, man. Holy moly.
Well, I hope you're going to put that in at the end.
Judas
That was
Priest.
great.
Thanks.